Hey everybody, welcome back to another Tuesday Night Healing. It's our 21st episode. I just wanted to give you guys a quick little update as far as what's going on basis. So they actually have me in this fancy neck brace right now, and I'm not wearing it at the moment so I can do this, or else I would have limited mobility, but I'm going to power through it the best that I can. It's been a long road. It has, and I want to give you guys the best show and stuff like that I possibly can, but working with an injury and stuff like that, it's difficult because I got to play it by ear. Every day is like a different obstacle that I'm going through. Today it's been okay so far. It hasn't been like over the top. Yes, Stormy is here in spirit. She is sick, so we're wishing her a quick and safe recovery. It seems like we're all going through a little bit of that right now. We're all in that little bit of a dilemma where things are just not working how they're supposed to be. So hopefully we can get her healed up and back, her to her normal self. Maybe Thursday, we'll see. But just keep her in your prayers. But to continue, it's been rough. I mean, I've seen countless doctors and stuff like that, and it's just spinning me in circles from one to the next. And it's just so much going on. So, bear with me while I'm going through all this. Sometimes we'll be able to do the lives, but if it's an especially trying day or something like that, you know what I mean? I'll always make it up and, try to give you guys the best possible. It would just be too difficult to sit there and be doing the live stream when it's already hurting and stuff and then trying to push through it. Like, it's just a lot at that point, So, again, I apologize in advance for our delay with last week's episode, but what wound up happening was that, thank you, Josh. So basically, what I'm going at is that we were going to do panic attacks, which we're doing tonight. That's what we're going to talk about, but I was going to do it last week. But I was in the throes of these panic attacks, and they believed that it was the muscle relaxers that I was taking at the time that they prescribed me to try to get the nerve to stop yanking on my spinal cord. And the reality is that it was actually causing more panic and problems in the long run. So once I stopped taking them, the panic seemed to subside for the most part. I haven't had a panic attack, knock on wood, in a week today. So, that's definitely a positive. But again, it's a day-by-day thing. We're just trying to roll with the punches. And I'm not usually in my normal workspace when I do like my write-ups and stuff for the live streams. So tonight we're just going to kind of wing it and just talk about it and answer questions and stuff like that anybody has, about the panic. And then I can talk about my own personal experiences and what I've done to kind of get through those things in life. My panic attacks personally first started when I was 23 years old. I think I just turned 23 before I turned 24. I had sat there one night at my old residence, and it was just a normal Friday night, having some drinks and stuff like that. And I woke up the next day, and what wound up happening was that I felt like I was having a heart attack. I felt like it was a real pressure, like tightness in my chest, and then it kind of boiled into this like feeling like I was having a heart attack. It just kept beating and beating and beating. I started getting lightheaded, which caused more anxiety and freaking out and stuff like that. And I was trying to go to the hospital, but like my friends that had, kind of like dealt with this sort of thing before, told me like, oh, it's probably nothing. Like, let's just give it some time and stuff. But after 2 hours, it wound up subsiding, and then it went away. But then every time I drank after that, it happened again. So the drinking was actually bringing on most of the panic. That's not to say I hadn't had a panic attack at any other point in my life. There were a few isolated times where it happened, but primarily mine would strike the day after drinking. So, and it could be anything. I could have literally just like 2 beers or something like that, but rest assured when I woke up the next day, it'd be sitting there waiting for me. It may not be as intense as if I drank more than that, but it would still be there nonetheless. And I always just chalked it up to that I shouldn't have been drinking in the first place, but if I sat there and did it, that was kind of my punishment for doing so. That it was like, well, you had your fun, but now you got to pay for your consequences. And it also kept me in line. You know what I mean? Like in my earlier days when I wanted to drink all the time and stuff, it kept me in line because I had to worry about the consequences the next day. And it's like, do you want to live every day feeling like that? No, of course not. You know what I mean? It becomes trying some, and it really boils down to a lot of pain and anguish. And all you're doing is just prolonging it. So you just have to deal with it. So it definitely tampered my habits and stuff like that, and turned it into, what it is, where it happens every once in a while. But it's not like how it was. Now, I had a panic attack that really, really got me. One of my exes decided to cheat on me and make pornographic videos with somebody, which I found on my laptop. And that was the worst panic attack I ever had in my entire life. I literally thought that I was going to die. I remember dropping to my knees when I found the videos, and I was just like laying on the ground, like literally thought like that was it. And, I pulled myself through it and whatnot. But when you sit there and you do your research and you try to find out, because there's so many different variations of panic attacks. It's just simple anxiety to like the really beating of the chest and like going all that. Like, you got to figure out what it is that you're feeling. Research your symptoms and stuff like that. Talk to a medical care professional, something like that, and really boil down to your exact symptoms. That way they could tailor medication more towards like what you're going through. Because not one pill is going to work for everybody. You have to kind of play around. And it's a lot of trial and error, especially when you're dealing with SSRIs like Prozac, lithium, all that sort of things. Zoloft. You have to really like find out. Now, I was told that you can go and you can get a genealogy test done. Now, by doing this genealogy test, they can take a swab of your mouth, send it down to the lab, and it'll come back with a comprehensive report about what medications based off of your genealogy will work for you. So instead of going through all those trial and errors and stuff like that, you can kind of like boil it down a little better so you don't have to deal with that. Now, for my panic attacks, my ex at the time had suggested to me that I should try what she had, and she had clozapam. Yes, my niece had it done. Okay, yes. So, and I talked to somebody, and they also had it done, and it seemed to work for them too. So, but I'll get to that in a minute. My ex at the time was taking clozapam, which is the generic form of Klonopins, the more, known brand. It is a benzo, just like Xanax and stuff. She was taking that, and she suggested to me to give it a shot. So after a night of drinking, I was having it. I did wind up taking it, and it worked. It literally made the panic go away quick. It made me drowsy and tired, but it did make the panic go away. So at that point, I was like, wow, I finally found the solution to fix this problem. But in my mind at the time, I was just thinking to myself, like, well, I can keep drinking because now I figured out a way to alleviate the negative part of it. And that's not the case whatsoever. But I went regardless and spoke to my primary physician at the time. He prescribed it to me based on what I was telling him, and I started taking it. But all it was doing was prolonging the panic. And I had to find that out the hard way because I took it from 2015 to 2017. I wasn't getting to the root of the reasons why I was having the panic. Yes, it was because of the drinking, but it was also because of the terrible relationship that I was in. And being in that relationship and constantly being cheated on and constantly being lied to and constantly being talked to like I was like the piece of shit on her shoe. Those were like the real heart like of the root issues. And I wasn't addressing them. Because that's the thing with borderline too. You throw that into the mix and you start idealizing people. You start with that black and white thinking. And you sit there and you say like, well, I love this person, or I'm so into this person, or I want to be with this person. And you start overlooking all their misgivings. It's one thing to accept somebody for their fault, but it's another thing to make excuses for somebody who clearly doesn't care about you and is trying to hurt you. That it's just a cycle of abuse that you keep repeating. And that's going to cause anxiety because nobody's supposed to feel that way. Nobody's supposed to be dealing with those sort of things, but you're justifying it. It's all about environment and situations. So, personally for a long time, after I had gotten out of that relationship, I would get anxiety, not so much a panic attack, but anxiety when I had to deal with that person. So I had to basically mold it in a different way and come up with a healthier solution on how to deal with it, which again, I will get to. But with the story going, I was taking them, and then I found myself taking them too much because I felt like I needed more and more and more. It wasn't doing what it used to do. I wasn't feeling it. And then when I finally left her, I had decided at that point to stop taking them altogether. And it was a godsend when I stopped taking it. Because once I stopped taking it, I stopped having that anxiety all the time. And I realized that the medication was actually the thing that was irritating it and causing it to come out even more. So, with that being said, you really have to pay attention to your body's signals. You really have to pay attention to what's going on and then try to, limit it and figure out what it is that's causing these things so you can get the help that you need. We always talk about, in our Tuesday night healings and stuff like that, we always talk about mindfulness and being mindful and practicing that self-love and stuff like that. And it goes a long way. Everybody sits there and they talk about it, but do you actually practice it? Can you actually sit there and say that you're practicing mindfulness and trying to do the right thing? Because if you're spreading all that positivity out in the world and you're actually trying to be loving and stuff, you might find yourself actually feeling better and getting rid of some of that anxiety. Now, of course, you have to deal with your phobias and stuff like that. Those are a lot harder obstacles to overcome, but in the long run, if you can overcome them, you can get rid of a lot of that pressure that's weighing you down. So if we were to dive into it now, basically, what is a panic attack? Everybody has their different variations of it, but it's ultimately the same thing. Your body goes into a fight or flight type mode. And when it's in that mode, it doesn't know, basically what is wrong. It's not like you could sit there and be like, oh, my hand hurt, I must have bumped it or something. It could be like a whole body experience. It could be your heart pumping. It could be you sweating. It could be you feeling nauseous or faint. Your vision can get blurry. Your limbs can go numb, as I've come to realize. It's a whole different ball game for everybody. It just depends on how your body handles it. And I have to basically give a shout out as well, because so here in New Jersey, at least where I'm at, when I went to the hospital the other day, they had suggested to me that I go to this place called MHA, and it's Mental Health Associates, and it's right down the street from me. I never even knew the place was there. It's very tucked in and hidden. So they told me where the address was, and I kind of knew what they were talking about. So I took a ride over there, and I went in there, and it's actually, for the most part, pretty good staff. They have very kind people in there, and actually one of the people I recognized who used to be a neighbor of mine. And it was very comforting to be in there and have people try to understand and try to come to the root of what's going on. Now, they do other things there. They're open from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., and you can go there. You don't need an appointment or anything. You could just walk in there and just go sit on one of the couches if you're in crisis, just to have a chance to cool off and stuff like that. It's a safe space built for those types of things. And if you want to talk to somebody, they have people on staff all day long, and they could just get you right in. So it's basically the way they explain it to me, it's the stepping stone before you start going to the mental health section of the hospital, before you admit yourself to get a new pair of grippy socks. It's like the stepping stone for that. So you would go there first, try to get to the root of the issue before you do your 72-hour hold, and then see if, it's really deemed necessary at that point. But obviously, if you're in some sort of crisis or you're feeling suicidal or self-harm or anything like that, obviously, maybe going to the hospital will probably be better, because they can't give you medication on spot, but the hospital at least can address those things should you need it. So when I was there, I'm talking to these different people. I went there today, and I was talking to a prescriber about, what my course of action should be going forward and figuring things out. And I learned today, actually, a couple things. That one of the things when it comes to panic attacks, that there's so many different variations of panic attacks that if you're going the medication route, different medications affect different panic attacks. So there's one medication they were talking about giving me today. It's I believe it's called propanol or something like that. I'm probably mispronouncing it, but it's somewhere along those lines. And when she's telling me about it, she had me describe my panic attacks. So my panic attacks, when they come on, I get a tightness right here. And then all of a sudden, I can feel it, coming, I know it's just moments away. So then my heart will start beating extremely fast. I'll start sweating. My vision will start going blurry. And I'll just have this overwhelming feeling I gotta move. I have this tendency, too, that was pointed out to me, that when I'm in a panic attack, I tend to do this. Not grind my teeth, but my jaw kind of just goes. And then my hands, I'm constantly moving my hands, by my side, almost like I'm shaking them off. And then I'll sit there and I'll try to sit down or something like that. And I'll just feel this overwhelming thing, I gotta get up, I gotta move. If I stop moving, then somehow or another I'm gonna pass out or die. But in the moment when you're going through it, and anybody who's on the stream who's gone through a panic attack can attest to, it feels so unbelievably real that you convince yourself that if you don't do these certain things, that that's exactly what's going to happen to you. It is. And they compare it, for most of them, it's the same symptoms as like having a heart attack. Not 100%, but very similar. They have a lot of similarities, except for the heart attack has a better chance of killing you, whereas the panic attack, like it's in your mind. If you can control all of that and like flush out that anxiety and stuff, it will go away. Sometimes it goes away in 30 minutes. I've had them last as long as 2 days. It just varies based on the person. And you don't have to sit there. A common misconception, I feel like I have to move as well and drink tons of water. Yes. See, I get afraid about drinking water because I feel like I can't swallow it correctly. And then I feel like I'm going to choke. So, like, I try to stay away from that. But if it helps you, obviously, of course. Now, when it comes to that, like, I feel like I have to move around. I have to do something. But what the lady had told me, or the woman prescriber at the MHA told me, is that different people have different things. So for mine, that aggressiveness and the pounding of the heart and the sweating and the blurred vision and stuff like that, that's its own separate form of a panic attack. It's a more aggressive panic attack. And for that, they use this medication. But the forewarning she gave me was that when I have the panic come on, I need to somehow check my heart rate. So whether that be feeling for it or an app on the phone or whatever the case may be, figure out what that is. And if it's over the number 60, and if it's somewhere around the 80 mark, then I can take the medication. So I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I was like, well, when I'm in a panic attack, the last thing I'm thinking about is checking my heart rate, which is going to send me deeper into a panic attack when I see that it's elevated, but okay. And then just the thought of stopping to do that in the first place, it's not something that would cross my mind. But okay, we'll play the game. So okay, you check your heart rate and stuff like that. Now you take this. Supposedly within 20 minutes it kicks in and it works. Exactly. You know it's happening, but it's hard to practice mindfulness in the moment. Yes, exactly. It's to make myself burp, to open up the throat and tightness. Doesn't work all the time. If it works for you though, then that's what matters, of course. So what they had me do is, she said I can take it and it should make the panic go away within 20 minutes. Awesome. It's like a miracle. Cool. I'd much rather take a 20-minute panic attack than like a 6-hour one, like per se. So, okay. What's the catch? Why isn't everybody taking this? Okay. If you don't check your heart rate, apparently, this is what I was told, I'm just paraphrasing here. If you don't check it, or it's below the number 60, and you take this, your heart rate will drop below what a normal heart rate should, and you'll probably collapse on the floor or go unconscious. So like, oh, okay. So essentially, if I don't know what I'm doing or I get a misreading or something like that, I'm playing Russian roulette. I'm either going to have no panic or I'm going to have no consciousness. So one way or another, it's going to turn into something. But I guess either way, you won't have panic because you won't be conscious for it. Okay. So, I'm sitting here, I'm debating it over, I'm thinking about it. I was like, something just doesn't seem right about this. Because my primary physician had prescribed me lorazepam. This is what I'm looking at right now. But I hadn't taken it because I haven't had a panic attack in a week. And she even told me, she's like, it's like an emergency thing. Only take it when you have a panic attack. It's not something you take every day, which is perfect. I don't need that. So I've been waiting to take it. But again, I'm hoping that I never have to, but in case. When I told the lady at the MHA today what my primary had prescribed me, she had sat there and basically was like, that's insane. She basically just prescribed you another sort of Klonopin or a Xanax. It's like an addictive thing and it's like another benzo. And I'm like, okay, well, something doesn't seem right about that. Well, luckily, when I had gotten home and I was resting on the couch, my primary did call me. So I had told her about what this person had said. And she was like beside herself on the phone. She's like, where did you go? Like, is this even a trained professional? She's like, the medication she's giving you, she's like, it's like for blood pressure. She's like, yeah, it could work with anxiety to lower your blood pressure so your heart's not beating as fast. She goes, but that's not a prescribing thing. She's like, if anything, she goes, you're taking a huge risk with that. Because if you take it and your heart rate isn't high, then your heart rate's going to get too low and you're really going to have a problem. So I spent a good hour on the phone with her, like talking about this. And I've noticed that nobody really knows, at least in my experience, what the hell is going on. They're all just taking a guess and hoping that one of them works. Yet they all work in the same health community. They all work for Atlantic Health. So it makes you wonder, like, who's right? You know what I mean? Like, you're going to take this medication, and again, you know, with anything, you're taking this medication and you're taking a chance. I've seen people take lithium before and go completely insane on it. I've seen people take Prozac and go really nutty on it as well. Because you're just experimenting with these drugs, hoping that it's going to work, which is why, you know, you really have to determine if you really need it. Like me personally, I don't really have depression. I have times where, like, I guess you can call it a swing or something. Hannah was prescribed Clonidine, which lowered her heart rate to sleep. It's a blood pressure med. Okay. So that makes sense. It would help her sleep to lower her blood pressure. I don't think that would be beneficial in my situation. At least I don't think so. Again, I'm not a professional or anything. I'm just going based off of what I keep hearing. Do not recommend blood pressure meds. Duly noted. So, you know, what was I saying? So, shit, you got me all fucked up. Yeah. So it's all a Russian roulette game. But again, I'm not depressed. I don't have these issues. I'm not, like, again, you can call it swings or whatever, or like mood swings or whatever, but it's not extreme. Like, I can have these moments where, like, I just need to, like, decompress, and I really don't want to talk to anybody. Like, I'm just, like, in my head or whatever. It's not like, you know, anything more wild than that, but I don't think that and even they agree with me, I don't think that something like a Prozac or a lorazepam or a Prozac or lithium or something like that would be beneficial to me, because I'm not having those sort of issues. And it would be more destructive to me to get into the grip of those things, take the chance on whether they're going to work or not, if there's any side effects, but even still coming off of them, or just even the commitment of taking them all the time if it's not necessary. Don't fix something that's not broken, I guess you could say. So, but they gave me this, and I mean, I'm nervous myself to take it, but it's just one of those things. I'm just going to have to play it by ear. If the panic does come back, and in my history, I'm sure it will at some point. I don't know when, but things are good. I mean, outside the injury, everything else is good, so I don't see a need for any of those things. But I could be wrong. But to get back on our subject, you know, usually what I do with our live chats, I'll sit down and I'll write up a big thesis and stuff about everything that's going on. I haven't had the time, and I haven't had access to go to my other office and do this where I have a printer. So I'm kind of just freeballing it. You know, you really have to, in my experience, if I were to give somebody advice about the panic attacks and stuff like that, it's to keep a journal close by. When you're feeling that panic come on and stuff like that, I know it's going to be hard to sit there and write something. I mean, I can barely even focus on the TV if I'm doing it. But try to have something. At least write it down when the panic goes. Or maybe when it's starting, write it down. What event transpired that's causing this? Because the common misconception, like I said before, is that people sit there and they think that, you know, well, what are you so worried about? Why are you worried all the time? It has nothing to do with that. They could just come out of nowhere. It could be nothing. I've had them happen from literally just like waking up and just boom, there it is. It's not that something has to cause it. Sometimes they just happen. So, but the more conscientious you become about it, and the more mental wellness you practice, you can start figuring out where these things stem from, and then start to try to eliminate them. Start to try to, like, know your body better. You know, and to kind of get off the subject just a little bit, when I was sitting down there today and I was talking to them, especially about like what I do with the Tuesday night healings and stuff like that, you know, they had mentioned to me about my diagnosis with the borderline and stuff. She had mentioned to me, she was like, why do you think that you have that? And I was like, well, it's not a matter of thinking, like, I've been diagnosed with it. Like, it's not. And she's like, okay, when she breaks out the DSM-5. And I was like, okay. I was like, before you get into that, I was like, I can quote it word for word. I was like, I could just tell you if you want. And she like looked at me like a challenge. So, of course, I started quoting all the symptoms and stuff and how it's worded in the DSM. And she looked at me and she's like, I guess you do know what you're talking about. I was like, when it comes to that, yeah, I do. I was like, I've done many, many years of research on it. I was like, I was diagnosed in 2012. It's now 2014. Yeah, I think I'm pretty well versed in what it is. And she looked at me and she goes, you know, you don't really show any signs of it. And I was like, well, no. I was like, and as I'm sure you're going to tell me, If you do DBT, if you work the steps, if you practice mindfulness, then no, you can go into remission and you won't have that problem. That's not to say that there isn't times when things get chaotic in life and stuff like that where I don't feel a certain way, like depressed or anything like that. It does happen, but that doesn't mean that I meet the criteria anymore. And it's normal. It's normal for somebody who works the program and stuff like that to not have those symptoms all the time. You know what I mean? Like if you were to look at like self-harm and stuff like that, I don't do it. I did when I was younger, but I don't do it anymore because I figured out other alternatives. But you can't sit there and have a label on you like a scarlet letter that judges you for the rest of your life. And not for nothing, in the mental health community, borderlines are looked down on. They're known to be difficult and uncooperative and have that black and white thinking that will cause that, okay, you either really like this person or you really hate this person. There's no in between. But when you practice your skill sets and stuff, you learn that in between. You learn that gray area. You realize that people aren't either good or bad. It's not categorized like that. Humans are complex creatures. Everybody has their good qualities. Everybody has their bad qualities. It's more complex than black and white. There is a gray area. You just have to be able to open your eyes and see it. And it is a freeing feeling when you are able to do that. It is. Like me personally, getting all of the help and stuff that I had come to know, it made me humble. And that was the one thing that I didn't think that I was going to come out of it with, but it did. It made me humble and it made me even more caring and stuff. And, you know, like I try, again, we always talk about that in the live streams. I try to do at least one good thing for a person every single day if I can. It's been a little difficult being at my house, but even today, you know, I held the door for a few different people today in my travels from the doctor's office to the grocery store. And, you know, I even let a guy go in front of me, like just little things like that. But it doesn't seem like it's much. But when you actually start doing it, it's a very freeing feeling. It's a very good feeling that you're like putting that love back out there. Because your life is just too short to be pissed off all the time. It's too short to just waste it worrying about other people's bullshit. Like it's much easier that when you find something that you really care about, and you know you should care about yourself and your own emotional well-being, and when you have that, you can sit there and make it a reality. It's not just a dream. You can turn it into a reality, but you just have to be able to put the work in. You have to be able to take responsibility for your actions. And a lot of people, when it comes to anxiety and panic attacks and stuff like that, it's because they're carrying around all this weight of guilt or worry or whatever the case may be. Yes, like the butterfly effect. You have to let it go. If you don't, and you don't do anything to pursue being mindful and, you know, putting yourself out there, you're only just going to keep carrying that weight. I mean, that's exactly what we always say. Like, hate is baggage. You really want to carry around all that stuff for the rest of your life? Do you really want to carry about all that worry and stuff? Because to think that you're in control of your life is insanity. Nobody's in, like, you can control certain aspects, but you can't control every aspect of your life. That's just insane. You can try to predict how others will act and react and stuff, but it's not always going to be right. You kind of just have to take it in strides and make the best of it. And I'm telling you from personal experience, from the whole circling that drain thing. Yes, that's one of my favorite things. I'm glad you brought that up. The whole circling the drain. Fuck. The whole circling the drain thing. Time to not do that. Change is hard. Learning healthy ways is a lot harder to do. Yes, and we've talked about that before. So Justin Furstenfeld said in his, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it was when he did that Texas show, Things We Do at Night. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's that. And he's sitting there and he says, you know, someone will only watch you circle a drain for so long before they look you in the face and say, get up and do something about it. And that's exactly what it is. You can't sit there with this, oh, poor me, my life's so hard, you know, woe is me, pity party bullshit, without wanting to put the change in. And I mean, for a while, I had that going. Like when I was with my ex and stuff, you know, it was like, I feel so bad. Why is this happening to me? And instead of actually like standing up and taking ownership, because it is partially my fault, because I allowed it to happen, you can leave, you can walk out, you can do all these things. There's so many options in life. You don't have to sit and shit. You can do different things. And when I stopped blaming other people for the things that were going wrong in my life, that's when I started to find happiness. I started to become like comfortable in my own skin. I started to, you know, reach out and start doing things that I wanted to in life that I didn't think were possible. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful, freeing thing. And, where I am at today, like, disregard the stupid neck injury that I got going on, but where I am at in life right now, I can honestly say that I am really happy. Like, things are going good. Once I can go back to work and, fix this whole problem, then things will be just fine. So, but you have to take it in strides. You can't sit there and think, like, in especially in my situation, like, oh, my neck, like, poor me, like, I can't go back to work. Like, no. You have to get up and you have to try. Like, this morning I got up and I did yoga and stuff like that, and it hurt like hell. It did. But afterwards I felt a lot better. And it was just like a nice freeing feeling. And yes, I am very sore from it, but it was worth it. And I intend on doing it again tomorrow and the next day. Even when it seems difficult, even when it seems hard, you have to sit down, come up with the things that are bothering you. Come up with the things that are weighing on you. The obstacles that you have in life. The things that are causing you dread. The things that are causing you anxiety. And start figuring out solutions. You can't just sit there and just say, you know what? I'm just going to pop a pill tonight and that's what's going to solve the problem. Because it's more than that. That's a temporary solution. You have to sit down and take ownership for it. You have to look yourself in the face, seriously, and say, how can I fix this? Because everything can be changed. And even when it seems dark all the time, it's not always going to be like that. Things will get better, but you have to be able to put in the work. And sometimes you have to walk through hell to get to heaven. It's just the reality of the situation. And I'm grateful for everyone that's helped me along the way to realize this stuff and get me to where I need to be. Because, being happy and healthy is, what it's all about. It really is. And living that life where you're constantly running from the panic and you're running from the anxiety and stuff, it's no way to live. It's just not. So, with that being said, I really wanted to just talk about my experiences with the panic, answer some questions, anything like that. My recommendation is to, again, write all that stuff down. Also, go to counseling. If you could find a good counselor and somebody that's not just sitting there talking about their own life the entire time, you might be able to get some of that stuff off. But you have to be willing to be honest. And there's a lot of people that don't want to be honest. They want to sit there and they try to tell only a quarter of the story. And I'm guilty of that myself when I was going to therapy. I was very biased about it and I wasn't telling the full story. Granted, I was going through court and I knew they'd subpoena it, so I was kind of like walking on eggshells. But after court ended, I went on my own without being told to do so, and I went for 16 weeks to check it out. And I was honest. And I did, and that's where I started to thrive. That's where things started turning around for me because I was honest about it and I started getting real feedback with real answers. And then I started doing my own research as well. I also found too that helping other people made me feel better. I'm just naturally a person that is like very giving. I like helping people. And it's like a thing to me that, like I said before, if you could just spread that love around and stuff like that, it just makes the world a better place. If you can do something nice for somebody and they could smile, maybe they didn't have to go home and hurt themselves. Maybe they didn't have to go home and drink. Maybe they didn't have to go home and use drugs. Whatever the case may be. And it could have been just simple like, oh, like they couldn't afford gas, like they ran out of money or something like that, and you just gave them $20. Like, that could save them, like which Sierra said before about the butterfly effect. One little thing can just change it. But it also helps you. It makes you feel like a better person. It makes you feel better inside, so the anxiety isn't happening as much. Now, I said before, what I said before on the live stream earlier tonight, how did I come up with healthier ways for me to get these things to stop happening? When it came to my ex, which was a huge problem for me when it came to anxiety, I know I had talked about this before and a lot of people had said they had liked it. Specifically, when I have somebody that I like know is going to text me on a regular basis or something like that, like in that case, obviously I have to deal with her because I have a child with her, I set the specific ringtone. So when it goes off in my pocket, I know and I can mentally prepare myself, this person is messaging me and it's probably going to be something bad. So take a minute. Go outside, smoke a cigarette, whatever the case may be. Take a minute before you answer it and look at it. Calm yourself down and then deal with it. And then when you read it, if it's something bad, don't answer right away. They ain't going nowhere. Put it back in your pocket. Take another breather. And then go about it with a clear conscience. And when I actually started practicing that, rather than just preaching it, it made a world of difference. It made the situations in dealing with her so much easier. There's no fighting or anything like that. I mean, she's still got an attitude, but I think she was just born that way. But there's no fighting or anything like that. And it makes the relationship better with my daughter. Then she don't got to see that. She don't have to feel that hostility or anything like that. You find out what they need. You figure out if you can accommodate it. Conversation's over. And it's done. There doesn't need to be any more than that. It's hard for, especially in the beginning. Like, I had a lot of problems with that because she was always combative and I'm not one to take shit. So, I would be combative as well. And then I would throw in other things too that I was frustrated about. And then it would just turn into a big argument when it was just a simple conversation that could have been had. But again, you have to take ownership. Not everything is your fault, but there are things in there that are your fault. And you need to locate what it is that's your fault and how you can make the situation better. If they don't want to cooperate with you and they want to keep the situation bad, at least you can know at that point that it's not you not willing to take fault. You've tried everything. And it's just, there's no cooperation. But you'll feel better, and that anxiety won't be ruining you on the inside because of it. So that's how I dealt with that situation. As far as the other situations, like the other times I would get panic attacks or something, like with drinking and stuff, I found that to be the problem. So I limited it. I wasn't doing it like I used to do it way back in the day. Then I don't have that problem anymore. But you have to be able to sacrifice. You have to be able to be willing to, again, give up things should you need to, or maybe it's a situation. Maybe being around a certain person, maybe a coworker, or maybe a friend, or maybe a relative. Limit your exposure to these people. Try to stay away from these situations that are causing you so much grief. That's what's going to help you in the long run. Because like we always talk about, what is the definition of insanity? It's doing the same thing over and over again, expecting things to change. It's not going to. And how many different times do you need to get burned by the fire for you to realize that it's never going to stop burning you every time you put your hand in it? And I've met people along the road that truly believe that one day it's going to change. And it's not. It's just not. And you're not taking ownership at that point. You're not sitting there and saying, well, maybe it's something I'm doing wrong. You're mad at the fire for burning you, but that's its sole purpose. It's you that keeps sticking your hand in it. And if you're not willing to stop doing that, then you're never going to get the help you need. And it's anything. Abusive relationships, all of that stuff. It all falls in the same category. You got this worry about the person's cheating on you or whatever. And that was another thing that caused me a lot of anxiety. And after my last relationship, I had said to myself, if I have to go through that person's phone, I'm done. I'm not going to do it again. I wouldn't. That's not the type of relationship that I want to be in. Sitting there worrying all night about what's going on or why I'm not good enough or what. No. And sometimes you have to rip the Band-Aid off. Sometimes you have to walk away. If somebody's hitting you, if somebody in the home is beating the crap out of you, I'm going to change. If you keep going back to them, you're the one that's the problem. It may be difficult. You may be threatened. You may feel that. But there's other resources you can go to get these problems fixed. But it all starts with taking ownership. And if you're not willing to take that ownership, you're never going to change your situation. So my final thought for the evening, before we go into our closing, is that the biggest thing that you can do to help yourself when it comes to anxiety and panic is to figure out where it's coming from. Even if you don't know where it's coming from. Every time you get it, just write down situational things that are going on in the moment. Eventually you'll narrow it down. Figure out how you can change it. Take ownership if it's something that you're doing. And then really let yourself go. It's okay to have egg on your face every now and again. Everybody does it. If you can accept it and move on in a positive light, then you're only going to help yourself. But if you refuse to acknowledge the things that are going wrong in your life and the things that are causing you to feel this way, then you're never going to feel better. If you need to talk to somebody, Stormy and myself always offer our services to reach out and talk. Again, I'm not a medical professional, but I'm always happy to help people as much as I possibly can. There's always resource lines. There's a suicide hotline. There's the mental health organizations. Every, major city has a hospital. They all have mental health divisions. You can go there and call somebody, see somebody. It's, it's all about you. It's all about you and what you are willing to do. But if you're not willing to make the change, then you can't be pissed off that there's no change. You have to sacrifice. You have to give up certain things. If eating hot dogs all the time or something like that causes you anxiety, maybe you have to give up hot dogs. Whatever the case may be, everybody has their different situations. Now, with that being said, injury pending, we are going to meet back up on Thursday. We may have Stormy join us if she's feeling better. If not, we are definitely going to have Steve read Detective Hunt. So that should be exciting. For those of you who are new to joining us, what we're doing is on Thursdays, every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do our Tuesday night healings. And after that, on Thursdays, we do our book reading. Now, music is a great healing tool for me personally, plus got a rep favorite band Blip. Always. This is a pro Blue October live stream. We will always praise Justin Furstenfeld, and we will always promote his music. And just like him, if you follow him, he gives back to the community as well and is a very big mental health advocate. And if you haven't listened to their music, I highly suggest it because no matter what you're feeling, he's probably got a song about it. So, with our Thursday, we are going to be doing Paradise Reborn. That's what we're going to be reading. We're going to be reading Chapter 13, Emergence. We're going to see Detective Hunt again. If you had read our first book, The Souls of Paradise, and you know who Detective Hunt is, and you will see him again. He is back, and in all his normal glory. So we'll see what we can do as far as people reading and stuff. I always like to give updates and stuff every week with you guys when it comes to the other book. I think I have like 3.5 chapters to go. The injury has definitely put it on the back burner. I'm still aiming for an April release. I don't know if it's still possible. I'm hoping. I am going to attempt to go back to work on Monday. If that is the case, then I plan to knock out a chapter next week, which will leave us probably with about 2 or 3 chapters left. I still think I could pull it off, God willing, but we'll see. And I'll definitely keep you guys updated on that. We have other exciting things coming up. The MHA program has invited me to come on a Wednesday when they're doing group therapy as a guest speaker to talk to them just how I'm talking right now and try to help out anyone in need or point them in the right direction. I also offered my services to them today when I was in my meeting that if they ever needed any volunteers on if I had free time or something like that after work one night for maybe an hour or two to go there and talk to somebody in crisis, that I would do that. It's just another way of me trying to give back to my community. So they said they would let me know, so we will see about that. I also am still waiting for GNS, a local restaurant here, to let me know when we're going to be doing our live stream with them. But we are going to be making a pizza with them and doing that. So just a little fun community outreach and stuff like that to spread the word because they do have delicious food and it is an exciting thing. I know my daughter personally is very excited for it. She told me that she made me promise her I'm not allowed to go to GNS and make that pizza unless she is present because, that's something that means a lot to her. So... But I will keep you guys up to date as far as those things going forward. I hope to see you guys again on Thursday for our book reading. And, take care of yourselves. Go out there and figure out what it is that's eating at you. And, try your best to figure it out. Try to do something nice for somebody tomorrow. See how it makes you feel. Just a complete stranger. Just do something nice. And see. And if it feels good, keep doing it. Keep spreading that love. Keep spreading that awareness. Be there for each other. That's what we're all about. Helping each other. It's just what we do. So I'll see you guys on Thursday.